Hello guys, and welcome back to the How to Animate YouTube channel. And it's going to be part 2 of this series. If you caught the last one, I showed you how to animate a gallop. And the plan for this animation is to follow roughly this reference I found. Okay, so the rider comes in, slows the horse down a bit. He then does like a sidewards kind of stop, says a line, and then carries on. So we're going to try and recreate that inside of Maya. So the first thing we're going to do is get a rider on him. I've got the old Rennie rig ready to go. So we're going to get him mounted on here. I'm going to do some very rough reins just to rough those out where they'd be. Quickly rig those up, and yeah, we're ready to go. So the plan is to put him on a path that's going to arc like this. Once I'm happy with that, I'm going to clean that up and get to a point where we can bake it down and then do the rest of the stop animation. So let's get going.
The first thing I'm going to show you is how to build some reins for your horse. Now if you're planning not to have a rider, or you're not interested in having reins, then feel free to skip ahead. So the first thing we're going to do is create a polygon cube. Okay, we're going to scale it a bit this way. If you go to Input, Polycube, you can increase the subdivision width by maybe 25, so you've got lots of lines here. Subdivision height by say 3, and the depth by 3 as well. Okay, you want to scale it to this kind of shape, so it's kind of like thin rectangle. Okay, so from here you want to make sure you've got animation tab selected up here, and then go to deform and lattice options. Now I like to work in 4s here, so make sure you've got 4 on all of these and click create. This will create a lattice deformer around. It might be quite hard to see, but it's there. If you then right click, you'll see something called lattice point. So select that, and this gives you the ability to mold this how you want. So what we're going to do is create this kind of shape with it. Okay, so once you have this kind of shape, what you want to do is just select the polygon object again, then go to Edit, Delete by Type, History, and that will get rid of the lattice. Now you've just got a polygon shape. So from here we want to create some joints to control this. So what you want to do is go to this tab, make sure you've got Rigging selected, go to Skeleton and Create Joints. Then go to Panels, Orthographic, Side View, and we're going to start creating joints. So it's up to you how many you want. So it's just a case of judging how many joints you want. Probably need a few going along here like this, evenly spaced all the way to the end. Then you want to go back to perspective view and correct and follow this geometry like so. So now we need a main joint that's going to be placed here, and this is going to connect both sides. So create another joint and then bring it up to where the mouth area is placed. You now want to parent this joint under this joint, so select that one first and then press P. You see it's now connected. Now with this one connected, we're going to mirror this entire chain onto the other side. So go to Skeleton, Mirror Joint Options. For this you're going to need Y and Z selected here, and go to Mirror. This will mirror the entire joint chain here, and just allow for any corrections by repositioning here. Now to make these easier to animate, we're going to add an IK chain to this. So what you want to do is go up to Skeleton, create IK handle, and select the bottom joint here and the top joint, and this will create an IK chain like so, and do the same for the other side as well. So if you select both IK handles here and move them, you should have something that looks like this. So now all that's left to do is to actually skin the geometry to this joint chain. So select your main joint here and the geometry, go up to Skin, Bind Skin, and if you move the IK handles now, you should see the reins move. So to make this easier to select, I'm going to group it under a locator. So I'm going to go to Create, Locator, and then I'm going to place it in between both of them. Then I'm going to go to the outliner, select both IK joints, and then middle mouse button and drag them under the locator. So now when I move the locator, they both move, and then we can hide away the joints and still be able to control these reins. Now if we actually move the horse's head, you'll see that the reins don't move with it, so we actually need to parent that underneath the head. So simply select the joint for the reins, then the head, and press P. Now when you move the head, the reins will go with it. Now, as you can see, the IK is holding this in well position, and eventually we are actually going to have a rider on here, and that will be driving this. So now I'm going to get the rider onto the horse, so I'm going to make sure that he's actually at 0, and then it's just a case of repositioning him and getting him on the horse into a nice pose. Okay, so once you have the character posed nicely on the horse, if I scrub through now, you'll see that nothing's parented yet. So we need to try and parent this to the horse in a way that's going to make our lives a lot easier. Now, I suggest you keep the legs in IK. That's because he would have stirrups on and he would be able to push off as well. But for now, let's just start with the hips. So with the hips, you need to find an appropriate controller to parent constrain to. Now, I would suggest that you parent to the hips of the horse, but we only want to parent the translates. So if you select the horse's hips and then the character's hips, and go up to constrain parent options, make sure you've got maintain offset on and translate all, and make sure you've got rotate all off. So let's add this now. Now as I scroll through, you'll see that his hips are now following the horse. So we're going to do the same for the feet here. So select the horse's hips, constrain parent. So to parent the reins, we want to select one of his IK controls. We want to select the locator we created earlier. Go up to constrain parent options. This time you want translate and rotate on. Click add, and then you'll see that the reins start to follow as well. Okay, so now we've got him very roughly parented to the horse. You see that he looks a bit rubbish on it, and that's because it's literally just following the translates, and he needs his own animation on top of this. Now, the problem is that we are using parent constraints. Now, parent constraints can actually be keyed on top of, so when you set a key, you'll see that this all goes red here, and you'll have a blend parent option. Make sure this is still set to 1 here. So if we do the same for the feet as well, you see blend parent set to 1, and the other one. Okay, so the parent constraints are still active, but if we try and key on top of this now, see if we want to raise him up here, and press play, see it won't happen. But if it's on an animation layer, then you can actually do that. So we're going to select the hips and both the feet, go over to Anim, click this button here to create an animation layer. Select animation layer 1. Okay, set a key on the first frame. Okay, so from here we're actually able to go ahead and key on top. So for corrections such as this, where he raises up, we're able to do that now. So with a bit of work, you should have something that looks like this. So for the things that are parent constrained, they were animated on an animation layer. Everything else can just be done on the base layer. When animating a rider, just pay attention to the body mechanics, so make sure that there's a bit of overlap between him and the horse. See the way the horse comes up first, drives him up, and then he comes up afterwards, so make sure it's just a nice loop. So what we're going to do now is make sure this is looping for infinity forward. Okay, so what you want to do is select all your NURBS controls. If you then go to your graph editor, select all your keys, and then go to curves, post infinity, cycle. If we expand the timeline here to say 200 and play it, it should be an infinite loop now. Okay, so let's get this guy moving forward. So we've got a loop throughout infinity, and what we're going to be doing is animating this main control here. For now, I'm just going to hide the rider. We're just going to concentrate on the horse for now and get him along this path. Now, this path is just simply a CV curve. If you want to create your own path like so, you can just go up to create curve tool and use EP or CV curve tool just to draw it. Now we're not going to be attaching him, we're just going to be using this as a visual guide. So the first thing we want to do is start leaning the horse over like so, because obviously we're going to be on a curve, and
horses tend to lean quite heavily into curves like this. So what we're going to do is just move forward to 30. Like so, and just match that curve, getting leaned even more into it. And then go to 60 and move him even further along. Okay, then we're going to go over to 90 and bring him all the way to the end, like so. Okay, and this is probably the point where we're going to come off animation layers. Okay, so now that I've followed that arc, this is what it looks like. Okay, so nice smooth arc around. Just check the reference again. So I've extended this a bit further than I actually have to, just to give us a bit of room. So we'd actually start, turn, and do the actual stop about here, I reckon. Okay, this is where he's going to start really whipping around, but for now it's okay. So what we're going to do now is we're going to correct the rider as well. See the way the rider is parent constrained only on the translates, so we need to animate him actually turning with the horse as well. So let's go ahead and do that now. Okay, so we're going to add another animation layer to the rider. Okay, and we're going to animate him coming round as well. Okay, so with the rider animated, it looks something like this. Okay, so it's starting to look a bit better. What I'd like to do now is just do a little bit more work on the layers. You see the way that the horse, even though it's kind of turning, you'd expect this upper body and head to start sort of rearing back, you know, as he pulls back on the reins and start to turn this way a bit more. So on another animation layer, we're just going to do that now. Okay, so that's done. Let's see how this is looking now. Okay, starting to come together. Okay, so once you've done all your business on the layers, we basically need to get off the layers. We need to stop this looping for infinity. So we need to pick a point in this animation where we're actually going to turn everything off and basically animate manually. We are also going to stop animating with this at this point. So I've decided to stop at 72. If you have a look at the reference here, that would be about here. See, these poses are quite similar. So what we're going to do is bake everything down up until 72. This after 72 will be locked in place, and we're going to take over all translation control on the actual horse itself. So what we're going to do is set our timeline to 72. We're going to select all the layers. We're going to go to Merge Layers Options. We're going to turn Smart Bake off, Sample by 1 on, and Merge. Okay, so what that has done now is basically bake everything down onto the base animation layer. Everything has now got a key, so it's nice and clean. If we extend the timeline out to say 200 again, you'll see that he is still looping for infinity. Okay, then in our graph editor we're going to select all the keys again, go up to curves, post infinity, constant, and this will basically set these curves to not loop for infinity now. So what you should see is after this point he's locked dead in place. Okay, and we can continue on with the rest of the animation now. Okay, I'd like to break down this reference even further and really explore the mechanics of what's going on here. Okay, so as the horse comes around and stops, this will be our next key pose here. And basically what's happening here is the horse is digging its front legs into the floor, okay? And what this is doing is creating a pivot. Okay, so it's pivoting on its front legs. Now all this forward momentum has got to go somewhere. Okay, so what happens? The rear comes round. If this was a forward stop and it wasn't around an arc like this, then the horse would probably keep moving forward and probably take a few more steps. Because this is on an arc, all that
forward motion is then translated into rotation. Okay, so we want to try and build this pose in next, and because this is now locked in place, we are going to be using the horse actual cog control to drive him forward and do all the translations. Okay, so this is what I've come up with. Now, one important point is because this stops moving at 72 and we're taking over with the cog control here, make sure that this key here is linear, otherwise you're going to get a horrible pop. If it's flat, you're going to get him coming forward really quick, and then you're going to have a flat key where it kind of pops and then you'll carry on going. So make sure that's on linear, and you'll get a nice smooth transition between these two. Okay, so this is this key pose here, where he digs his front hooves in, and from here we're going to do the next pose, which will be, I think, probably that one there. So his rear has now swung around, his front feet have now risen up, and his back feet have taken over. Okay, so I've gone ahead and put that other pose in. So comes forward, hits, and round. Okay, so again, this is where it starts to pivot. Those front legs come down. Powerful front legs are able to stop the horse enough to get the rear around. Okay, so let's have a look at the next bit. Okay, so we've got this kind of very similar to this pose, but the feet would land about here. He would continue around, so he's rotated this way. So I think the next key pose would be this one here. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in now. Okay, so with that key, it's starting to look okay now. So these are just very rough key poses at the moment, and the timings are all over the place, but it's starting to take shape. I'm quite happy with this so far. So in the next video, we're going to go ahead and add this final bit here, and we'll sort out the rider, make sure he's doing what he's meant to do, and we'll go ahead and polish this up. So I hope you guys are enjoying this and find it helpful, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.